Welcome to the Life Engineering Podcast. My name is Gabriela Embon, former chemical engineer, relationship coach, and author. In each episode, we'll uncover the wisdom, strategies, and tools to help you build thriving relationships and purpose-driven careers. My wish is that something shared in this space touches your heart, brings clarity, or gently guides you toward what you need most in your life right now. Thank you for being here. Let's begin now. Okay. Ladies, if you are driven, independent, and successful in your career, but you kind of feel like your love life isn't quite aligning the way you'll hope, this episode is absolutely for you. Because today we're diving deep into the science of connection and emotional availability to uncover what it really takes for ambitious women to attract a committed and emotionally available partner. Without compromising your ambition, your independence, or your standards. So, if you ever found yourself stuck in that strong, independent woman pattern, but at the same time craving deep, meaningful love, you're about to hear game changing insights that will transform the way you date and the way you relate. Today, we're going to answer questions like how to balance your independence without pushing love away, or the number one thing you should focus on if you're ready to attract your ideal partner, and so much more. And to answer these questions, joining me today is Meleah Manning. Meleah is a certified trauma-informed dating and relationship coach for women. And she specializes in helping driven, highly independent women attract an emotionally available, committed partner who matches their level of ambition and value. So, are you ready? Let's dive in. Meleah, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Thank you for having me. I am so excited as well.
Yeah, because listen, I know many ambitious women who actually struggle with finding the right partner
Mhm.
without compromising who they are.
Yeah.
But before we dive into that, I'm really curious to know what inspired you to focus on this particular group of women.
Yeah. So, honestly, because it's me, because I can relate so deeply. It was my experience, right? That was my experience in love and dating and relationship was being that very high achieving, highly independent type of woman. And I started to notice my own patterns in dating and relationship and the ways in which that I was actually wearing this highly independent, high achieving type of woman as like a badge of honor, but it wasn't actually serving me when it came to dating and relationship. It was holding me back, it was sabotaging me. So, of course, I dive deep into myself to understand these patterns and understand a better way, a more fulfilling way. And I'm fascinated by the way it specifically shows up for that type of woman because we'll attract a certain type of partner or we'll show up in love in a certain type of way because it's what we know to do. It's our patterning. But if we really look at it, it's the very thing that is causing what we don't want to happen to happen.
That's right. I actually find that we do relationships like pretty much everything that we tackle in our adult life very much from a place of correction rather than from an authentic aligned place.
Yeah.
And then of course that usually doesn't lead to fulfilling relationships. So what are the biggest misconceptions that highly driven independent women have about love and relationships? What is that correction that we are trying, we're trying to correct our childhood. There are patterns there.
Mm-hmm.
What are these biggest misconceptions that we bring into relationships?
Well, one of the biggest things is that we look at relationship very similar to the way we look at other things in our life, the way we've succeeded or reached certain levels of success in other areas of our life, which is usually business or career. And so if we do more, if we give more, if we find within career, for example, if we're a certain way or we do things a certain way, we get validation. And that feels good. We're human. We like that. And so then we'll bring that same strategy into love. Okay, if I give more, if I do more, if I kind of prove my worth, then I'll get the love that I'm really seeking. But it doesn't work that way at all within love, right?
Why is that? Why doesn't it work that way when it comes to love and relationships?
Well, there's a couple different things we could dive into, but one of them is that love really requires vulnerability and softening and opening. And those are the same things that don't quite feel natural or safe to the woman who's been used to being the high achiever, the type A, the highly independent. Will sometimes put a wall up, or again, example in career, those things don't necessarily serve us the same way that they might in love. And so we don't actually value them the way that we could or perhaps should, right? Because they actually serve us in love. And it's because it feels so vulnerable. If I let go and I let this partner step up and, maybe pay for dinner or open the door for me or express how they feel about me, my go-to patterning is going to be put a wall up or don't believe it or push it away. And obviously that's not going to work out that well. And a lot of that's happening just automatically, where it's not like sometimes we'll be consciously aware of it, but not all the time. And so it's that patterning. And that's why it feels so frustrating, is because I'm used to being good at things. I'm used to, if I just give more of myself, or I just really, it's like this do more, give more type of energy, then I should be getting what I want back. But it just doesn't work that same way within love. And there's different dynamics, and mostly speaking of and thinking of kind of that feminine masculine dynamic, a man and a
I
woman.
was
But
going to ask you about that. Yeah.
I think it shows up in all dynamics, maybe energetically. I think those dynamics of masculine and feminine, of course, we have those energetics within ourself, and they're within all things in life, right? So certainly within a dynamic of a man and woman, but I also see it, in all dynamics, honestly.
I find it fascinating to balance these two energetics, because when we go to work, whether we are managing other people or we are just, working on our own, we are in a male energy. We're giving. If the male energy is the giver, right? At work, I am giving. When I'm teaching, I am giving. Even as a mother, I am giver. So that's more of a male energy. But how do we gracefully learn and discern when to tap into the male energy and the female energy? Because then when I am a wife, I want to be in my female energy
Mm-hmm.
so I can be that vessel that receives from the man,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. And I think, part of it is that maybe from conditioning within society, there's a lot that goes into it, but we often internalize that the feminine energetic is maybe weak or
That's
not as powerful or not as important or not as productive. It's these certain things that we learn to value within our society. And the feminine is the opposite, right? So just internally, all of that programming has a big, big part in this. So it's first just recognizing both of those energetics, the ways in which we can show up in those energetics are important. Their polarity, they balance each other. So if we're only in one of them all the time, we're not going to be in harmony within ourselves, but certainly not within love and relationship and life in general. So the first step I'll take my clients through is really actually healing their relationship to the feminine energy,
mm-hmm.
so that they can see the value of it, the beauty of it, and the harmony that it can actually provide within their life, within themselves. So it's all about working with that within themselves first, and then we start to kind of practice it within relationship or externally. And it's really fun. It's one of my clients love to find these different ways they can practice this, because once you're more aware of it, you can feel it, you can sense it, you can see it happening. And it's like this beautiful, they're opposites, right? So it's actually this beautiful harmonizing that can happen when maybe we come home after a long day and we let our partner, rub our back or get us, make us dinner, or however they want to provide and kind of protect in that energy. But if we come home and we're still in that really masculine energy, we're just going to clash. So that's
That's
what's
right.
happening so often, is now and we don't understand it, right? We're like, why are we not connecting? It's because we're in that same energy. So we're just clashing.
That's right. That's right. I I was just talking to a client today about even asking, not expecting your partner to know what you need, but feeling safe enough to say, this is what I need, and allowing yourself to receive.
Hmm.
Would you
Yeah.
say that's a problem for women who are so independent? Just being able to say, can you help me with this? Asking?
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of times what happens is either one, we will just want them to know, right?
Yes,
Now we're just frustrated because they don't just magically know what we need. And I get it that it would be nice if they just know, but I don't think that's a fair expectation. So then that will just lead to a lot of frustration. But if we really unpack that, why do we want them to just know? There's usually something there of I'm scared to ask, maybe I'll be rejected, maybe it'll be like I'm too much. There's something under there to unpack. And the other thing I see happen a lot is instead of just asking for the desire, we lead with the complaint. So instead of asking, I'd really desire this, or this would really feel good, or could you, help me with this? We'll actually just say, you never help me with this. Why didn't you do this? So we're leading with that complaint, which that just causes disconnection and defensiveness. Versus if we were to lead with a desire, it usually feels more vulnerable for people, and but it's usually more received. It's like, okay, I can like hear that my partner is wanting this thing. I can step up in that way.
absolutely. I was telling this client, I was saying, the quality of the relationship depends on how the man treats the woman, or the male energy treats the female energy,
Mm.
and how the woman treats herself.
Mm.
So I think this says a lot about what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I know that one of the things you talk about and you teach your clients is the difference between chemistry versus say that word for me, please.
Compatibility.
Yes, thank you. So, what is that difference? Let's talk
Mhm.
about that for a moment.
Yeah, so this is so important, especially when you're dating, because what often happens is that we're only basing, do I like this person? Am I going to continue dating this person off of chemistry? Because we're never really taught about compatibility or what that really means or how to choose a partner that's really actually right for us. So, chemistry is the feeling of attraction, of butterflies, of excitement. We all know the feeling. And it makes sense. We're growing up, we're like teenagers, we're young adults. Of course, we're just going to base who we're going to date off of chemistry. It just feels good. We don't know much else. Well, what will start to happen is we we're attracted to what's familiar. So we're gonna, that's why a lot of people will find themselves repeatedly attracting the wrong partner, or going after people that are emotionally unavailable. It just feels familiar. So that's why it's not a great idea to only base who are you going to choose as a partner just off chemistry. And honestly, I would even challenge it to say like the feeling of love isn't necessarily even enough. So if we start to bring compatibility into the equation, we start to think about, okay, who am I as a human? And what do I value? And what do I truly desire and require in a relationship that actually is going to lead to fulfillment? So I'll have my clients try to narrow it down to top 3 or 5 non-negotiables, that qualities in a person, or things that they really desire in a relationship, that we can really see, okay, that would actually lead to true fulfillment long term in a relationship. So, these aren't going to be things like he has this job, or, tall, dark, and handsome. It's not those type of things, right? Those would be more of like the chemistry type of things. So I think both are important, right? I think we definitely get to have a deep attraction and excitement and passion for our partner, but we have to also bring compatibility into the picture if we want, a relationship that's truly supportive to us, that is sustainable long term. I consider things like maybe their self-awareness, their emotional intelligence, their level, how deeply have they connected to themselves? What is their character like? Do they have a sense of integrity? How do they treat other people? It really comes down to like character and values, and like how does this person carry themselves and treat you? Those are things we start to think of when it comes to compatibility. And I don't necessarily think, I think people kind of get this confused of like compatibility means we're the same, like we're so alike. We like the same things and the same hobbies. And I don't think that necessarily has to be that way. Maybe you have, some things you have in common, but compatibility is more, it's more of that harmony. Can we
Mhm.
harmonize? I personally think it's nice to be quite different than your partner because I think that's exciting and we can kind of challenge each other and complement maybe. So it's not necessarily we have to be the same, but do we complement each other? Does our life vision and our deepest values and our kind of the way we can communicate and navigate hardships even, does that work together?
So how that okay, we know how chemistry feels like. You describe it, those butterflies, that attraction. And we know when we're looking for when it comes to some if somebody is compatible to us or not. But how does compatible feel?
I
What are
love
the signs that a woman should look for inside herself?
I love that question. Compatibility, it feels like harmony. It feels like balance. It feels like we're a team. We can truly navigate these things together.
Hmm.
When I share something with my partner, and it feels a little hard, it's vulnerable, it's a little clunky, it's a little messy. And then they can come back and say, wow, I really hear you, and this is where I'm coming from. And even if we're not agreeing in that moment, we're hearing each other and able to meet each other and validate each other, and that's the feeling when I feel that in my body, it feels safe. I don't feel like I'm on guard. And it's this feeling of, wow, we're doing life together, right? Like we are a team. There's a sense of harmony in this relationship together.
You bring me back to when I started dating my husband. I mean, I think I shared that in the book, but 6 months after we started sharing, I remember just lying down on a couch and just putting my head on his chest, and his heartbeat felt home.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him out of nowhere, this is for life, right? And we were dating 6 months. He could have just said, excuse me, I barely know you, right? Um, I had zero fear of saying that. And for me, when you are talking, how does compatible feel like? For me, was that sense of home and that sense of I can be myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There, yes, all my alert antennas
Yeah.
on be careful how you show yourself, what you say, were off.
Mm-hmm.
Was that sense of safety and harmony as you were describing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a good distinction because, with just chemistry, sometimes it can feel like the passion, the intensity, it doesn't necessarily feel super safe and grounding in that sense of home. It's exciting, right? And we learn to actually like that excitement and oh, like what's going to happen? That's why a lot of people will feel like the boring guy that's like actually emotionally available and like a good guy. They're like, "Oh, well I'm not attracted to him because he's boring." And it's usually just because that intensity of that chemistry that we might have been used to in the past isn't there. And that's a really big, it's important, right? Because we have to learn to rewire that. And it doesn't mean go for the boring guy that you're not attracted to. Like
Yeah,
that's
that could be a correction going to the other side of the bridge. When the bridge is turning that side, you go, okay, I'm going to look for the other side, but then none of the extremes are right.
exactly 100%.
Yeah, I find that belief that it's either passion and love
Mm-hmm.
or safety, it's a common belief
Yep,
that
100%. And that's kind of, it's like we swing from these extremes, one end of the spectrum to the next. And it's like, okay, well, what I've been doing, these like maybe hot and cold guys or unavailable guys, like it's not working out. So I'll go to the opposite extreme. And that's what I did as well. And then I've
mm,
had to learn, okay, it's actually a rewiring internally of the nervous system and my own patterning and belief system 100%. My clients will say that all the time. It's like, oh, I'm just not attracted to the boring guy. It's like, okay, then don't go for the boring guy, right? It's like, why can't you have both? Why can't you have safe and healthy and sexy and attractive, right?
that's right. So it's really shying away from being in that correction mode and looking at what's your desire. Because if your desire is to have both, as you
Mhm.
said, I want to feel, the butterflies, and I also want to feel attracted to this person, but I also want to feel safe.
Yeah.
and contain and that I can be myself, then if that's your desire, then it means it's absolutely possible,
Hmm. Yep.
right?
Exactly.
Sometimes women say, yeah, I want both, but I want one more. Well, you can have both equally.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. It all comes back to that kind of subconscious belief system. And so much of that work actually happens within yourself first,
Hmm.
right? So the question I'll always reflect back to women is, okay, if this is what you're desiring in a partner, in a relationship, have you become that person? Can you really show up and feel like, yeah, I'm that person that of course gets to have that type of love because I'm embodying those qualities myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always say that if you're trying to solve a problem, creating an don't solve a problem. Sorry, let me rephrase this. Don't solve a problem, creating another problem.
Yeah.
And I find, looking working with couples years later, I go, why did you marry this person? Well, it was safe. Okay.
Hmm.
So you were solving a problem, created and now creating another problem, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to be in that corrective mode. We want to be in pure alignment and desire. And of course that takes, as you said, the inner work.
Hmm.
So for a woman who's tired of repeating the same dating patterns, what's the first shift she should make?
Hmm. So the very first thing I'll do with my clients is we'll do what's called a relationship inventory.
Okay.
We want to get really clear on like what are the patterns? Like what are we even doing? Right? Before we start like the really deep inner work and the rewiring, what are we doing? Right? So we'll lay it all out in a kind of specific way of designed of like we're looking at past significant relationships and we're looking at certain things within those relationships. What attracted you to that person? What was the communication like? What triggered you? How did you respond to the trigger? Like these certain markers we'll look for and we have it all laid out and the patterns are very clear. We can see, oh, this thing has happened in every single relationship. And what's important about that is you'll start to see your contribution to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the point we want to get to is yes, what's
Own it.
happening externally is important, right? And it's easier to identify that. Every partner I've had blamed me in every conflict. Okay. So then, and then what happened within you? So what did you say back? How, and why did you respond that way? So we'll start to identify your contribution. And that's the main thing we want to work on shifting is your contribution to the patterns, right? Like, 'cause they're your patterns. We can't change everyone. Like that would be crazy if we're like, all right, we need to change like every man in the world. No. But if we can recognize what's not serving you as far as your relationship patterns, then we have that roadmap. So then we'll start to do some subconscious rewiring, right? So that takes, of course, repetition and a lot of conscious awareness because if you start to identify a pattern, you just see yourself in the pattern more and more and more and more and more.
Of course.
And that's what freaks people out. They're like, oh, it's not changing. But it is changing. That's the first step is the awareness. And then you just need the steps of the actual rewiring. And I'll be honest, it's hard work. Like that's the work that not a lot of people want to do because it's not an overnight fix, but it's actually really really sustainable. If you can truly do the subconscious rewiring, that's what truly will change who you're attracting in relationship. And then we do some nervous system work as well because a lot of it is we have to create a new baseline of safety
Mm-hmm.
for people, right? Like if we've associated safe as like the chaos, that's not necessarily going to work, right? So, creating a whole new baseline of safety within the nervous system so that you can have and be attracted to the type of person that is actually safe and feels like home and has like the passion or, whatever qualities you truly want. So, we can kind of find you can have all of it at once. It doesn't have to be one or the other. So, and then there's, more practical steps we'll do within dating, of like, how are you showing up on dates and things like that. But we don't even do that work until we do the internal work first, because that's
Of
what
course.
changes so much.
That's right. Well, if we talk more about dating, I know you teach something called the intentional dating method.
Hmm.
So, can you explain what that is and how it helps women attract their ideal partner faster?
Yeah. So I think of it like a filter, right? So if we start with the work we were just talking about, that's going
Okay.
to kind of bring you to this whole new clean slate of, who you truly are as a woman and what you truly desire in partnership. So that's when we start to really define, okay, these are my non-negotiables. I have true clarity, not this like um, clarity if we don't do that work on ourselves, what we think we want in partnership might actually not be our truth. It's just what we think we can have, right? So we come into the truth of, okay, this is who I am as a human. This is what I desire in relationship. So we use that as I think of it as a filter, right? So intentional dating, here's the thing, is you actually have to go on dates, right? A lot of people just want to kind of like sit at home and just wait for him to like come knock at the door. And maybe that will happen and you can do that if you want to. But I think dating can be so fun. And I really view it as a practice, right? Because every date I go on, every relationship I'm in, it's reflecting back something about me. It's like the most beautiful place to do personal inner work, you know?
Absolutely.
And it can be fun. Like connecting with people is fun, learning about people is fun if you choose to see it that way. So you got to go on dates. You can do dating apps, you can do it organically, whatever you choose. But on the dates, right? So within the first 3 dates, usually you can start to identify, is this person familiar to an old pattern of mine? Or does this person have some of the qualities I truly desire in relationship, right? And that might mean certain questions you're asking. That could mean how you're really listening and being present with like what they're sharing with you, how they're treating you. Sometimes you might need a couple more dates, like some of these, like just really see someone's character, like you might need some time with someone, but there's a few markers we can start to notice within like 3 to 5 dates
Like
of
what?
like,
Do you help women formulate those questions according that to their own personal blogs? How does it work?
yeah. So there's well, it's funny because like with the type of women I work with, like they're so high achievers. So like sometimes they'll go in and they're like acting like it's an interview. So I'm like, okay, let's get back into the feminine. So there's certain questions, but sometimes I'll actually challenge a client. Let's just be playful. Let's just relax on this date. You know what I mean? No, because I do that. I've done that in dating where I'm like, I literally just treated that date like an interview. Like that was too intense. So I'll have them track themselves, like noticing their nervous system, noticing how they're feeling in their feminine. Do they feel radiant? And really, what I want to teach them is to trust themselves, right? So I'll give them certain questions and help them identify that. But then, my biggest teaching is like, take a breath, feel grounded. Does it feel right to ask a deeper question about his upbringing or how close he is with his family or what his hobbies are on the weekend, or do you want to just kind of laugh and have a drink or something, right? Like I'll let them kind of like find that themselves. But of course, I mean, it's important. You can learn so much about someone just in the way they speak about themselves,
Mhm.
the way they hold themselves, the way they speak about even like their job or their friends, and it's hard. The first 2 dates, people are nervous. It's maybe not their most authentic self. So I try not to have my clients like judge them too harshly, right? Because that can be part of the patterning of that highly independent woman is we're looking for like, oh, red flag. Oh, push them away. Oh, not the right ones. We have to really learn the softening. So yeah.
That's beautiful. Do you find that the older the woman, the harder it gets, or not at all?
I don't I don't necessarily see that. I think it's so nuanced to everyone's, specific experience. Everyone has their own kind of relationship blueprint and life path. I'm thinking of an amazing client I worked with. She was 55, went through a really terrible divorce. I mean, just really, really hard, and then became a single mom. And, had some really tough beliefs to work through within I think it was within 90 days attracted an amazing man organically. Like she has a farmer's market like booth. He would come and bring her a coffee every week. Finally asked her on a date. They're still together today. It's been like a couple years. So it's like these really beautiful stories like that. So I don't necessarily think it has to do with age. I think it's so much deeper, right?
I find this work to be extremely fulfilling and a privilege to
Yeah.
be able to bring more love into the world, more love and more connection.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, well, this was packed with insights. What really, like, you gave us so much to think about. Um, so, if someone is ready, I kind of want to wrap up, right? Um, if somebody is ready to start attracting their ideal partner and they're not necessarily working with you at the moment, what is the number one thing they should focus on right now? They go, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to put myself out there. What should they do?
Number one thing they should focus on is their contribution. So if they could switch one thing, start to notice themselves when they're, venting to their girlfriends or journaling, and instead of saying men are like this or, this blaming external, just shift that to what's my responsibility? Where can I take responsibility? Because the moment you do that, you take your power back and you can create massive change really quickly if you kind of hold the mirror up and say, oh, I shut down or I pushed him away or, and it's not about blaming yourself. It's like radical responsibility. If I can shift that just a little bit, if I can shift into something that feels even more authentic to me, my entire experience with dating and love can change.
It's so interesting you said that. Was sure you're going to talk about I need to get clear about what I'm looking for. So you're saying no, this is not what you need to do first.
I think that's the thing. Like what you're looking for, if we're not first looking at the way we're getting in our own way, it's just really covered with what we think we want, what we think we need. It's not usually like actual truth. And people have a really hard time, truly identifying what they really want in relationship because they've only had, I think of it like they've only had a certain flavor so
Hmm.
far. So they don't really even know what's possible. So I don't find it's the most helpful place to start
Okay.
because let's
This
do
is so
some of
interesting.
that, yeah, self-responsibility, unpack some of that stuff, and then your vision of love is going to expand into something just way greater than you could imagine currently.
It always goes back to the first pillar in my book, the me. Start
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
Now, there's that belief that you need to first love yourself and do your inner work before you find a partner. What do you think about that?
I
What's your take on that?
agree and I disagree, right? Because I think that loving yourself is this forever journey.
Yeah.
And I think it can really like get people stuck. So I absolutely agree that you have to first focus on yourself and become someone you're proud of and feel in integrity with yourself, feel in truth with yourself. And that is a forever journey. We're going to go through, seasons and waves in life where we don't feel as connected to ourselves or as proud of ourselves or just harder seasons, right? Um, so just that acknowledging that, but absolutely, like if we are seeking a partner to validate us and kind of fill a void for us, it's not going to be a good match, right? So knowing that I've got me no matter what, and I'm open to love. So like, can we have an open heart while also having our own back at the same time?
That's right. Last week, I ran a webinar, leading to Valentine's, and we said part of the purpose of the relationship is, you create unity, is to create unity.
Mm,
How do you do that? You do that by acknowledging and embracing your positive qualities, but also owning your negativity, your what you need to correct,
yeah.
and then knowing your partner will trigger that so you have a chance to actually correct it.
Yeah.
So we ask everybody to make a list of their positive attributes. What is that you're bringing into the relationship? And also the negativity that needs to be corrected within ourselves, because then if we can actually own it by saying, okay, I have a tendency to be defensive when somebody tells me how I could have done things better, or I am a very judgmental person. So whatever you list your negativity, okay, that person is going to trigger that in me, so you kind of expect it.
Hmm.
So
Oh
when it
yeah.
happens, you go, oh, thank you for showing me, I know I need to work on that,
Yep.
rather than blaming and going into defensive mode.
1000%. And that's a beautiful example of taking the responsibility of the pattern. So instead of
That's
he
right.
always triggers this in me, it's like, oh, interesting. When that happens, I get judgmental or I get critical, right? And then you have so much more power within like the whole dynamic.
And removing the shock. Oh, I can't
Mm.
believe my partner triggered me. Oh, I can't believe they make me feel like I'm not good enough. Well, you knew it was coming. It's part of what you sign up for, so you can work on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, yeah. Wow, this has been um, insightful and also packed with very practical advice that we can start implementing right away. So tell us, how can women connect with you, and yeah,
Yeah.
and where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm most present on Instagram. So at Meleah_Manning. I love to connect on there. I'm always posting content on there. I have a podcast, Leah on Love. I have a free masterclass. It's on my website, meleahmanning.com. So those are just a few ways to kind of see what I'm up to. See, the masterclass is great because it kind of maps out a lot of what we talked about today in a way that you can really start applying it. So if you're not ready to dive in, get coaching and all of that, the masterclass is a great kind of taste of the work so you can start to implement some of it.
Beautiful. And I know, I mean, we share so much, but do you have any final words of encouragement, of inspiration for the high achieving women out there looking for
Absolutely.
love?
Absolutely. Yeah. What would I say? Mm, yeah, I think the biggest thing is that it's safe to put your walls down. It
Ooh,
is safe to open your heart, and it's actually the key to the love you truly, truly want. And I so get it because I've lived it and I still navigate it every day. And it's the very thing that stops us, right? And so learning to thrive in love is almost an opposite strategy of how we've learned to thrive in business and career. And that's okay, right? It's okay to not be good at it. You can learn, you can practice. It's okay if it's messy. And the love that you desire is so, so available. You are not broken. You are not the problem. You just haven't practiced enough in this arena of love. And it's just so available to you.
yeah. Wow. This was very inspirational. You actually reminded me words that I once said to my late dad. I said, Dad, we all have limiting beliefs. The only difference between people is that we have them in different aspects of our lives. For some women, the area of relationship is where the biggest word, but also the biggest reward is awaiting.
Mhm,
We all have an area like that in our lives.
mhm.
So,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Meleah, for sharing such powerful insights today. And to all the ambitious women listening, your success in love matters just as much as your success in your career.
Mm.
So if this conversation resonated with you, take that first step and start dating with intention. Contact Meleah, follow Meleah, and check out her resources for even more guidance. All right, everyone. I look forward to seeing you in another episode coming up in 2 weeks. Until then, still stay safe and let's create a wonderful relationship together. Okay, well, that ending
Yay.
wasn't very good. We're going to cut it.